Hello, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. So good to see you all. Do a quick check of my audio here. Let's do this. Make sure you can all hear me okay. External microphone built in. Everybody's hearing me. Wonderful, wonderful. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Satsang. From my last Satsang from New Mexico. I am leaving tomorrow to spend a week with my son in Phoenix, and then next Friday I'll leave for Seattle. So there won't be a Satsang next week because I don't actually have my place until Monday, so I will be kind of everything kind of parked in my car until Monday, when I can unload it and get an internet and all of that kind of thing. So next week I'll be sending out an email, sure I'll know, so you all know that next Sunday there won't be a satsang. But there is today, so let's focus on that. And that's Murphy behind me, the neighbor's cat, who comes to visit me. Remember what satsang is for, right? It's a time to put everything aside except one thing, and that is the inquiry into your real nature, your true nature. There's enough during the day that we have to engage with, that we have to deal with, and the like. But for this next 2 hours, put all of that aside. We have to do the stuff we have to do during the day. We have to take care of business, right? That all goes without saying. But for at least 2 hours a week, don't think about anything but yourself. This isn't selfish at all, because the self that I'm asking you to think about is not the selfish self. It is not the egoic self. It is not the self that you have as an image in your mind. It is not the personal self, which is really just a function of the body. It is the transcendent self, the self that is always present. It's never absent, but we've become so used to thinking of ourselves in terms of this idea we have in our minds that we've lost sight of who you actually are. For lifetimes, actually. But, 1,000 lifetimes in the face of eternity is nothing. It seems like a lot, but it really isn't. It's all a matter of what you compare it to. Right? So let this be a time where the main question you're concerned with is, who am I? Who am I really? Right? Beyond my thoughts about myself. Right? Because our thoughts about ourselves, they can be really good, they can be really bad, but notice that thoughts are always secondary, right? They're always one step removed. They're always a describing of something else. They're never the thing that they're describing. If I tell you about Murphy, right? He's playing on the floor here. And you get an idea of Murphy, this Murphy the cat, right? Well, your idea of it is not the reality of it. Our idea of what an orange tastes like is not the reality of what an orange tastes like. And we can describe it in great detail. We can describe all sorts of things. Our minds are incredible. Our language is just remarkable of how well, how detailed, how nuanced we can describe all sorts of things. But no matter how I think about it, or describe it or conceptualize it, it's never the thing. It's always a Kodak moment. It's always a YouTube video. It's never the actual thing. The whole point of non-dual spiritual inquiry is to get to the thing. Right? Because a thought of a thing will, of course, be incomplete, won't it? It'll be lacking. It'll be limited. It can't possibly capture the reality of anything. It can't capture the reality of a rock that is the same, year after year, let alone a living being like yourself, which is forever evolving and changing and growing. It simply can't do it. So, what are you actually? What are all these things, thoughts, referring to? This is the whole thing. This is the whole thing. Okay? To get out of our thoughts about ourselves to the direct experience of ourselves. And remember, the thoughts can be wrong. And they're always limited, right? But sometimes they could just be dead wrong. Right? The person who thinks they're fat, and they weigh 90 pounds. Our thoughts about ourselves are never accurate, but sometimes they can really be so far off as to be destructive. So looking for ourselves means withdrawing our attention from thinking, and actually that has to include emotion, sensation, all experience, right, that you are experiencing, and turn towards the actual ultimate experiencer. That's what this inquiry is about. And just grasping that the thought of you is but a shadow of you can be enough to turn your attention towards you. Turning away from what is at best a decent representation, and at worst, a total distortion. The idea you have of yourself is not you. It is not the reality of you. No idea you have of yourself is the reality of you. The reality of you cannot be experienced through thought. It can only be experienced directly. A different kind of knowing altogether. Well, I see people arriving and questions are there, so I'll kind of jump right into this. Roberto and Rosario, both from Spain. My Spanish contingent were here first. And Roberto jumped right in with a question. He says, I've been following an astrologist for the last few months on YouTube, and he says big events are going to happen in the world. Do you happen to know what kind of events they are, if any? Well, you don't really have to be an astrologer to know that there are big events happening in the world. But I don't look at it from the point of view of trying to predict particular events in the future. I know some people who are astrologists. I know one that's actually a world-class astrologer. And she always is very reluctant to predict anything because she wants to describe it in terms of tendencies and potentialities, not in terms of absolutes. Because if somebody tells me this is going to happen and I believe that, I start looking for it. My mind starts wrapping itself around it. And it really does distort the fullness of experience. At the root of all of the current events going on in the world is a primal shift in consciousness. A shift from the values based on nothing more than materialism, right? Greed, selfishness, egotism, right? It is the inevitable result of ego. And it is the ego that is falling apart. It's the ego that is coming to the end of its run. And a very different sense of self is emerging. And you and I, sitting here, are the fruits of that. We're not creating it, right? It was simply time. Consciousness is waking up. The awakening isn't always a pleasant process that leads to it. Because in order to awaken, to truly awaken to who you are, you have to lose faith and interest in what you're not. You have to just kind of become tired of the repetitive, boring story that is the egoic mind. We become wise, recognizing that all of our attempts to create a physical, a material utopia, a perfect human being, even a stable system, have failed. And so we are seeing the end of an epoch. I don't know what specific events are going to happen. Right? There's going to be another plague, locusts, another reality TV star elected as president. I don't know. I have no idea what kind of bizarre events may occur. What I know is this: don't worry about it. The only thing you have to concern yourself with is your own inner state, because that is the essence of what is causing the various things that are going on in the world. It is simply a combination of the energy going on within individuals, the divisiveness, the cruelty, greed, hoarding, arrogance. It's just magnified, right? Purge these from you. Purge them from you, and you will have purged them from the world. Right? At least your little part of it. But believe me, truth is way, way, way more influential, persuasive, and powerful than falsity is. Falsity requires enormous amount of energy to try to maintain it. That's why billions upon hundreds of billions are spent on the media trying to influence us one way or another. Hundreds of billions of dollars. The amount of effort, plus the strict, the grip they have on media, right? That don't even want opposing points of view, it's completely driven by a system that's on its last legs. And the answer to that is simply your own awakening. It's your own insight, right? To not be fooled. And to sincerely seek to know yourself as you are. Because that's what's happened. The world has been living under a model of self-identification, the idea of what a human being is, in its modern incarnation, like 12,000 years, starting back with agriculture. And the conflict between agriculture, which led to cities and possessions, and the people roaming around, still just not really settling anywhere, more nomadic. This is the end of the entire state of mind and sense of self that emerged from there. And it is the door opening now to who you actually are. That's why you see such an extraordinary amount of information by real teachers right now, like on YouTube, that you can listen to someone of the caliber of Mooji. Right? Never before has a genuine and enlightened master had that kind of a reach. we're talking hundreds of thousands, right? Millions, really, right? A genuine sage, a Buddha had, Buddha was completely famous in India, and he had a few thousand followers, maybe 10 tops, right? Now, imagine Buddha on YouTube. That's what we have now, the potential. This true understanding is reaching. And simultaneously, consciousness is becoming less and less and less content with the way things are. That combination of consciousness becoming less content, human consciousness, and the availability of the true Dharma is intersecting. And that's the powerful and that's the power that we're seeing happen. That's the real underlying cause. That's the real thing that is bring all these things to the surface and make it happen. What's happening is, what's coming to the surface is the depravity of the egoic mind and the emptiness of materialism. So don't fear it, right? Because whether we have wonderful things happening or terrible things happening, your job is the same. Come to see yourself as you actually are. Simple as that. So I see, Roberto, you've been busy with the questions here. Sue, hello, Sue McIntosh in South Africa. Nice to be with you too. Snizalea, hello GP and everyone. Hey, let's hit some like buttons. Thank you for reminding everybody. Yes, hit some like buttons. If I don't get a like, I'm just gonna take my marbles and go home. Can I at least get an amen? All right, Roberto, how do you know if you are attached to something or you just like it? Simple. If you just simply like something, it doesn't matter whether you have it or not. If it matters whether you have it or not, got to decline. If it matters whether you have it or not, you're attached to it. If you have a sense of if I don't get this, I won't be happy, or if I lose this, it's going to be a tragedy, or if I don't attain something, or someone, or some event, or some state, now you're attached. Attachment simply means you feel a dependency on it, right? You have a dependency on it for your own sense of well-being, right? The moment your sense of well-being becomes conditional, you have stepped into the realm of attachment. And aversion, don't forget aversion. Attachment is one thing. But we also, I don't want this. Push that away. Don't let this happen to me. This is aversion. And it's just the opposite side of the same coin. Of course we like things, but will your sense of well-being go up and down dependent on whether you get it or not? That's the sign. Otherwise, if it isn't, you just enjoy it. You enjoy it while it's here, and you say ciao when it goes. So it's actually very, very simple. Very simple. John Watson, hi from Glasgow. Hello to you. And Roberto. Is there a way not to pass the pressure of my process on my wife? I've been crying like a baby, and she's always helps me, but I think it's not fair for her. Well, my friend, that's up to her to decide. You're going through your process, and if this is where it leads you, it's up to her to decide whether it's fair or not. Ask her. Tell her you're concerned about that, and just let it be something that brings the two of you closer. So she knows about the process. She knows what you're going through. Never assume anything about your partner. It's a killer to relationships. The moment there's an assumption there, we literally put on a blinder to the person that we're sharing our lives with, right? Or at least part of our life with, right? The moment there's any kind of assumption about, this is the way she feels, then you're not present anymore. right? And now you're looking at your image, your idea of her, and not her, or him, and not. And, remember, I started this thing talking about the image in our minds is not us. Well, the image you hold of your partner is not them. It's just an image. So every moment becomes an exploration. Every moment becomes an opportunity whereby you can fall in love again, where you can really go beyond convenience and just just convenience and convention, and actually have a love affair every single day, because that person you're with is different every single day. So the same process you do to yourself of stepping back from thinking to be present with yourself, you do with others. Your image of them is not them. Right? If I see a YouTube video of the Taj Mahal, it doesn't mean I've been to the Taj Mahal. That's not the Taj Mahal. It's an image, right? It's not the experience of actually doing it. You're standing in Yosemite Valley. You can see all the pictures you want, but until you stand there, you go, wow. Then you know what it is, right? So don't be living with a YouTube video of your partner. Live with your partner, right? In all the nuances that they have. So make it something that brings you closer. It's lovely and loving that you feel that way, and you don't want to impose on her. But it's not an imposition unless she says so. It's a way to get very, very intimate with each other. So good, Roberto. I hope that helps. Dave and Elaine, Southeast England. Good to have you guys. Good to have you. Mary in New York. Hello, Mary. And Ava in Poland. Ursula, Madeira Island, Portugal. Lydia in Germany. Hello, Lydia. Wonderful, wonderful one. David, Elaine, wishing you good luck for your move back to Seattle. Thank you. Thank you. It's all unfolding really quite nicely. Buying furniture for the first time in like forever. It's really quite strange, right? Because I've been a vagabond for so long. So, and I'm going to be in this place for at least 12 months, right? With good internet. Jorge Falciao. Oh, the Portuguese is so, it can be so difficult for the English tongue to pronounce. Falciao. Oh, sorry. Jorge, that part I got. In Lisbon, very, very good. Dale in Massachusetts, John Sheehan, hello GP. All right. My internet just crashed on me. We are back, right? Everybody can see and hear me again. This is the last time I have to deal with that. The next time I do satsang, I will be on the fastest internet service available. And I am so delighted, delighted about that. Okay, let's see, where was I? Yes, my move to Seattle, Lisbon. Yes, I was on John Sheehan saying hello, John. Hunkered in and glad to be here. Yeah, satsang on a cold and stormy evening. It's great. Penny. Hello, dear GP and all the lovely family. Marlo. Hello, Marlo. Wonderful to be you. Penny says, I was at the KECC. For those of you who don't know, that is the Krishnamurti Education Center of Canada, where I've done 2 retreats so far, and there's another one going to be coming up in March, end of March. KECC Self-Inquiry. I have to leave as I would not want to miss your satsang. I left them with what you quoted. But there's nothing need to arrive at. We are perfect the way we are. We do not sing. Ah, very good. Very good. How did that go over with the Krishnamurti crowd? Michael G. Am I only electrical signals in my brain? Is there a real me, or am I just an illusion? Perfect question. That is the ultimate question, isn't it? Right? And the material model, the model that the world goes by, what most people go by, the general, the tacit agreement is you are only an electrical signal in the brain. Now, that's an assumption. It's been laid out there. This is kind of the assumption that science is going under. Matter of fact, they're even so arrogant about it as to say that, well, we know how everything works. It's just a matter of figuring out the details. And they say that especially in response to the perplexing question, and that is, what is consciousness? Because, look, your entire experience is being perceived. And that is, which is perceiving, it is obviously consciousness. Now, the material model is consciousness is some kind of a structure in the brain. Now, they've never found that structure. Because notice, your eye collects light. Right? We say the eye sees things. But what it actually does is collect light. The eye doesn't see, that it doesn't cognize what it's seeing. It's just like a lens. The light hits it, it gets in. And every little process along the way, where it gets converted to electrical impulses and runs down the nerves and runs into all sorts of things, there's thoughts and memories and all sorts of things get put around it. Right? But nowhere in that entire process is there something actually cognizing it. If you look really, really closely, there's the key difference, the key thing to notice is that there is cognition. Something is hearing my words. Right? This ear, the thing on the side of my head, isn't hearing it. The vibration, the eardrum vibrating in sympathy, it's not hearing it any more than this microphone is hearing me. Right? It's picking up the particular vibration, it's converting it to electrical impulses. It goes through the internet, comes out the other side, it gets put back into sonic vibrations to either go through the headphone or speakers, however you're listening, which then gets picked up by the membrane, which is just like a microphone, right? Converts it back into electrical impulses again, right? You can see the whole process. Can you find anywhere in that process where there is cognition? So this is the question, right? Where is this structure that is actually me, that is the one cognizing? Okay? And this is where non-duality and materialism part ways. This is where non-duality and science part ways. Consciousness isn't in or of the body. Now, this is something you cannot prove it dialectically, you cannot prove it through any of the material methods. Because if it is non-physical, it is not subject to physical laws. It can't be measured, it can't be weighed, it can't be dissected. It can't be understood through any of the methods. It is outside of what the scientific method can actually approach. So science simply says either it doesn't exist, which is really what they're saying, or it's just another structure in the brain. And they'll even go as so far to say as that the sense of me, the sense of identity, the sense of I, is an illusion. And to that I ask, okay. And in fact, I agree with it. The sense of I is an illusion. But in order for there to be an illusion, there has to be something looking at being eluded. There has to be something there cognitive. It's that cognition that is the problem that science cannot solve. They say they have, but if you push, there are the strict materialists, right? There's like the Richard Dawkins, right? Type who just absolutely reject anything except complete and total materialism. But if you talk to many, you find they go, there's something different about consciousness. You can't find a consciousness molecule, you can't find a structure. Right? It's different. It is qualitatively different than anything material. The answer that sages have been giving forever is consciousness is not the body. I don't remember the guy's name now, but it was on in neurosurgery. After they developed anesthesia to the point where they could actually operate on somebody's brain while they were awake. Right? Top their brains wide open, and I even saw a picture of one guy playing a guitar while they were working on his brain. And one of the first doctors who was doing it started mapping the brain. He would give a tiny little electric impulses to different parts of the brain, and the body would respond. Right? He mapped it thoroughly, so that he could have people do anything, lift their hands, laugh, cry, anything, right? By knowing where to give the right kind of impulse. But he remarked that what he found to be amazing was that no matter what he did, the person knew it was being done. He could not get anybody to want to laugh. He could only make the laugh happen in the body. That doctor, interestingly enough, concluded, with all the evidence in front of him, the mind is not in the body. Now, I use a different definition of mind than he does, right? So you could say consciousness. Consciousness is not in the body. It is qualitatively than anything else. And so it is just really a blind, arrogant assumption that it has to be matter, and we'll figure out what it is eventually, and just kind of blindly go along. I mean, it's even contrary to the point of view of science that if you haven't proven it, it's not true. So consciousness is not in the body. You're not an illusion. You have illusions. You have all sorts of illusions. The illusion that I am this body, right, is an illusion. But there has to be something there to have the illusion. There has to be consciousness there in order to be deluded. So there are electrical signals going on in the brain. There's function. But there's no more sentience to the body and the function and the electrical impulse than there. Looking for consciousness in the body is like looking for the singer in the radio. They're not there. It is a reflection of it. It is, you could see it as a receiver, a vehicle through which it is passing. But consciousness is non-local. It doesn't exist anywhere in particular. It exists everywhere simultaneously. It's non-dimensional, non-spatial. It's outside of time and space. Right? All of those are part of the various material structures. Right? And the only thing I can do, right, to point you to that, so where you can see it for yourself, is simply take the time to notice that all experience, thought, sensation, and emotion, which is all there is to it, it is all nothing but the combination of those elements, right, all have a witness. Now, is the witness witnessing? Is the body seeing itself? Look for yourself. And if you just keep going back, putting everything that you can see, everything you can experience, anything you can perceive goes on this side of the lens, and see what remains on this side of the lens. And you'll find the body drops away, the mind drops away, all experience drops away, but you don't drop away. And that's where you ask the question, who am I? Who is this that perceives even the body? The body can't perceive itself. The eye doesn't see itself. You do. My hand doesn't see me. I see it. Who's that I? This is the exploration. And if it is what I say it is, namely a completely non-material, pure being existence, it cannot be materially detected. So no scientific method, be it intellectual or experimental, can detect it. It's outside the realm of measuring and weighing and the like. How's that, Michael G? Is that helpful for you? Daryl, hello GP from Maryland. Hello Daryl. Himank, my man, post-awakening, what should I really do or look for? I believe I have overcome my seeker's dilemma too. I know the truth and am living it. All right, good. You know who you are. Okay. That question, what should I do, right, is not coming from who you are. That isn't a question that would even occur to your true self. Okay? So see it for what it is. It's a different form of seeking. So go beyond I know the truth and I'm living it to I am the truth and life itself. There's a subtle duality when you say, I know the truth, as if truth was an object, a thing, and then there was a you who is knowing it. Okay? Only truth knows truth. Only God knows God. Only reality knows reality. Only conscious is conscious. So who's this I that knows the truth? Examine it. Take it apart so that there's no duality left. You are the truth. You are life. And so you need no strategy. You need no rules for how to live. Now, recognizing that, you recognize that nervous system, the functioning of life, right, has been operating under this assumption that I am this body, this person, this life, this whatever. Right? And just because you have seen that you are truth itself doesn't mean the whole nervous system is going to immediately just go, oh, isn't this wonderful, and let go of all of those old habits. So the sense of a separate self can, and almost certainly will, keep presenting itself for some time to come. Don't see that as a problem. See that as an opportunity to deepen this understanding, to so completely disidentify with this that it doesn't even matter anymore. It doesn't matter whether the sense of a separate self comes up or not, because you don't believe it. You have no interest in it. It's that movie's gotten old. But part of that is it still has questions. If there's a question, that's the sense of the separate self arising. There's no questions for the self. Right? It's not waiting for anything. Right? It's not incomplete in any way. Right? So you are just continuing to separate yourself from conditioning. Because conditioning isn't a person, really. There's no entity there. There's no sentience. It is just the conditioning that is going on, just functioning. Like wheels on a car keep going, or a tree grows. It's just part of what life does. So even a subtle sense like, I know the truth. Look at that I. What is that I referring to? Is there a person there who has woken up? That too would be an image. Okay? You are the awakeness. You don't actually awaken. Okay? What happens is the sleeping one falls away, and the awakening stands revealed as having always been there. The guy in the dream doesn't wake up. The dream stops. Are you following this, Himank? Is living in the moment the finality of it? That euphoric feeling is hard to let go of. Yes, but you must. After enlightenment, the laundry. The ordinary human being is the Buddha. Those are Buddha's words, not mine. This is the embrace of life as it is the ultimate achievement. It is not some rarefied peak experience or altered state. It is being completely and completely surrendering to being the ordinary human being, feeling whatever life feels like. The ups, the downs, all of it. But you remain untouched by that. You don't need a peak experience. You don't need a groveling experience. You don't need any experience at all. The experience happens. Right? Sometimes it's wonderful, sometimes it sucks. But that is the finality of it. You're not living in the moment. Right? You've never left it. You are the moment. Right? You go from knowing to being. I know that, I am that. And then the knowing and the being become one. Right? Only God sees God. Right? You seeing the truth? Then you are the truth. Because only the truth can see the truth. Are you following this? And I'm just going to keep pressing you on it. Right? This isn't a diminishing of where you are and where you've come from. I'm just pushing you the rest of the way. Right? You're not quite off the cliff yet. Andrew Robinson, I feel that same shift of consciousness, GP. It is happening. I wonder where we will end up. Ah, you're talking about my answer to Roberto's question. We will end up home. You will end up right where you started. In the ultimate sense of being, the ultimate sense of your own existence. That's the where. How that manifests in the world, who knows? What kind of a world are we going to create when there's no longer any sense of lack? The whole world, every system in the world, every single one, economic, political, social, are all based on the assumption of lack. Which means they're all based on the sense of being a separate self with an objective universe, a cold universe that doesn't really care about me in the slightest, and I've just got to get what I can to survive. That's the model that all of humanity is living under, and will continue to until the fundamental premise, I am separate, is seen to be false. And if that separation is no longer there, neither is the sense of lack. So what happens to all systems on Earth, human systems, if there isn't lack anymore? There isn't scarcity. Our entire economic system collapses because it's all based on the idea of limitations, limited resources, only having so much of anything. If everything is infinite and unlimited, the value of everything goes to infinite and zero. We don't value things anymore. We won't value things for that in that way anymore. Our whole system of valuing will shift to the realization. Everywhere you look, you see the face of God. You see the infinite. And the world, as we know it, will simply not exist. This is really what's meant at the end of by the term "the end of the world," which appears in all sorts of different cultures. It means the end of the world as we have conceived it, which is not really the world. It's the end of the snake and the rope. It's recognizing the mirage as a mirage. And so you just simply don't live that way anymore. So you're feeling it in you. Let the world end for you. Let the body-mind drop off for you. And then you'll find simultaneously it drops off for everybody else. The world isn't a bunch of different minds running around. There's only one, and it's you. Grimace 97, a door to Hyperborea, you mean? Not sure what you mean, my friend. I said something, and maybe I misspoke or something. A door to Hyperborea or hyper? Not sure what you mean, buddy. Please clarify. David Elaine, is the essence of our true nature and that of consciousness stillness and emptiness, out of which everything originates? So the world, the sense of a separate character in that world, thoughts, feelings, sensations, etc., are movements of consciousness within this stillness. Suffering seems to originate by identifying with this movement rather than the stillness and emptiness at its heart. Yes. Well put. Consciousness is undefinable. Pure awareness, undefinable. Indefinable, sorry, wrong word, sorry. It is empty. It is still. Right? Because that which perceives, right, must perceive something that's moving. There must be something to perceive. Right? In order to have an object perceived, there must be some motion against a background. Right? There has to be some contrast, something to distinguish one from another, or there is no perception. The essence of consciousness is emptiness, pure awareness. Now that emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. It means formlessness. Right? If it has a form, it's limited to that form. So the only way consciousness, existence, being can be infinite is if it is formless. It's the only way. Because the moment it has a form, I don't care how big it is, God can be the size of a galaxy. He's still limited. Or she's still limited, right? Because there's a form. It must be formless. If it's formless, it is imperceivable. And of course, it's imperceivable also because it is the perceiver. Consciousness is not empty as in just like space is empty. It is self-aware emptiness. Right? But its nature is self-knowingness. Satchidananda, being, consciousness, bliss. Existence that is self-aware of itself, so that being and the knowing of the being are actually one. So the nature of awareness is knowingness. It is self-awareness. Right? And of course, what else is there for it to be aware of other than itself? So it's as if self-awareness ponders itself, which is awareness. Don't try to give this to your mind. It can't work that one out, because it has to have two things. Right? Awareness, aware of itself as awareness, and what emerges from that is the sense I am. Right? Now it's secondary. It's a sense, right? It's secondary. The sense I am can only follow the reality of existence. So it is I am prior even to I am. Right? It like knows that it is and doesn't know that it is. Again, don't give that to your mind. It won't get it. Right? That I am manifests itself in an infinite number of forms, every single one of those forms being a manifestation of I am. Everything says I am. Even if they don't say it, everything that is has a sense I am. Right? You say I am, I say I am. We all have the same name, right? You call me JP, I call you David. But you don't call you David, you call you I. We all have the same name. But nobody's parents, I'm going to name this child I am. And so, imagine being called in class. The teacher says, who can answer this? I can. I can answer that. Well, why ask it then, teacher? Right? And couldn't do it, right? But notice that sense I am is everywhere. That is, it's almost like the interface between the manifest world and the infinite silence. But it is the nature of awareness itself that gives rise to experience. Now we can look at it as being just undulations in consciousness, but what would those undulations be made of? Right? Consciousness, right? What else could it be made of? Consciousness, the origin, everything must be made of it. It is the primal substance. Right? Now this is inconceivable to the materialistic mind, which must have something out of which to make things. Right? But you're not a thing. You are a bubble of modulation or undulation of consciousness in the vast ocean of consciousness. A wave on the ocean is a metaphor. All of these are metaphors, though, because it's inconceivable. What is it actually? You. What else can I point at? Right? What does consciousness do? You. You're it. You are the evidence. You are the proof. You are consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Everything about it is consciousness. Where does this exist? In space somewhere or in consciousness? Your direct experience is it exists in consciousness. I don't have any experience of something out there in space, only in consciousness. And right now consciousness happens to be fixated on this particular form and these particular things, but it's not confined to it. You know, the artist, you know, Picasso went through his blue period, right? Everything was blue. But he wasn't limited to the blue. It wasn't like that's all he could do. He purposely did that, explored every hidden aspect of blue, but that was off somewhere else, right? I mean, we're doing the same thing. I'm focusing my attention on this world now, but this world is just one of an inconceivable number of worlds. Every one of them spontaneous, right? The I am, because the I am just doesn't make an I am. I'm kind of bored. I think I'm gonna invent magazines. The universe, the entire universe happens spontaneously as a result of the I am. I am everywhere. I'm not sure that answered your question. Oh, the other half of the question. Right. In the modulation of consciousness, right, which pure awareness has never identified with anything. Can't. Identification is obviously one of those undulations, isn't it? So identification is just another thing that arose, a self, right? A self experiencing a world. The I am gave rise to this self, right, in the world, right? And so there's this perception of the world through these eyes. Think of it as Picasso's blue period. Right? So the universe is David now, right? David's version of the universe. Everything is being seen through David's eyes, or Elaine's eyes, or Carrie's eyes, or my eyes, right? But forget about my eyes, David, or anybody. The only ones you actually know are your own. Right? And what are you experiencing? The universe. You are consciousness experiencing itself as form. But consciousness in its essence has no form. If it did, we'd be stuck. So it expresses itself in form, but that form is nothing but consciousness. This is the non-dualness of it. And of course, the mind just goes right here and kind of goes, because it can't, not to. It can't see that. So we use examples like the dynamic aspect of consciousness, which is form, and the potential aspect, the stillness, the emptiness aspect of consciousness, which is the unmanifest. But the unmanifest and the manifest, they're not two. They're the same substance. But here's the most important part. That substance is you. Don't think of it as something there. It's you. That infinite being is what's hearing my words. It's also what's speaking them. Did I get to it, David, Elaine? Let me know. David's the one who always does the typing. So, Carrie in Australia. Hello, Carrie. Good to see you. Oops. She jumped ahead. There we go. Where'd it go? Andrew, damn. That every single day difference is exactly what Krishnamurti wrote about in his Book of Life on the page for November 15th. Spooky. Wow, really? That's great. I'm channeling Krishnamurti. Fascinating, beautiful when things like that happen. Don't read too much into it, right? But it's beautiful when those things happen. When that kind of kind of synchronicity takes place, where you begin to see just how beautifully this all flows. Because it's true. I mean, he knew it was true. It's a constant flow. There's not anything actually really there. Right? There's only a flow. Sarah, hello Sarah. Sorry I'm late. Wow, you're forgiven. My love, Jeremy, congratulate you for finding a super apartment in a super town. Yeah, I did. It is. It really is a pretty cool place. Small, but cool. I'm glad it's small because I don't want to buy that much furniture. Frozen. Hey, is the thing on? Roberto, I've always felt I could not have the skills, knowledge, or qualifications to progress in everyday life. I've always felt like on the verge of a cliff in those terms. It's not true, right? It's a feeling that got installed in you a long time ago. It wasn't true then, and it's not true now. Reject it. Don't go along with it. Don't turn it into a problem you have to fix or some kind of practice you have to overcome. It's just not true. It feels true only because you've believed it to be true. That's it. That's all there is to it. Reject it. Don't give it any more credence. Whenever it comes up, just notice that there it is again. It's an old habit, an old record playing. It's not all that interesting, and it is not true. You came batteries included. You have absolutely everything you need to be the perfect you in your life as it is. Every moment you have absolutely everything you need. That's the truth. Now just take that into your heart and deny anything that contradicts it. Daryl, hey, is this thing on? Okay, cool. Yeah, it was, I lost my internet. But like I said before, in Seattle, I am going to have the fastest internet you can get. I might even be able to do these in 1080p. I'll be experimenting with that. So the picture will be nice and clear. Because I know right now, because the internet's so bad, it looks clear to me, but I know to you guys, it's actually pretty pixelated. It's been stepped way, way down. So that won't be happening anymore. But the audio is coming through, which is more important because I'm not that much to look at. Lydia, just wanted to say thank you and wishing you a good move too. Oh, Lydia, you're wonderful. You're so welcome. So welcome. Dale, regarding science take on consciousness, there are a lot of articles out lately with scientists promoting panpsychism, which is that consciousness is fundamental to the universe and all matter has it. Yes. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. Science is having a hard time letting go of its prestige, right? I mean, they're the new arbiters of truth. They tell you, scientifically proven. Look at every ad, right? Scientifically proven. Even like the law of attraction, scientifically proven, right? It's the ultimate authority for our world. And scientists don't want to give that up. There's a lot of ego there. There's a lot of possessiveness out there. But there are characters like Rupert Sheldrake, right? There were some others from before who have said, it's not the way it appears. And I know there are more who are thinking it than are actually saying, because if you say that, you get discredited. Because the materialistic view still dominates academia, achievement, publishing, and all that kind of stuff. So the panpsychism is something that it's closer, right? But it's kind of like the Gaia principle, which was popular for a while and now has fallen into disrepute. We're seeing the emerging conflict between the consciousness-only model and the material model. And right now, the academia, the institutions of science are still very rooted in the material model. And the commercial aspect of science, all the technology and pharmaceuticals and all that, they are as well, because consciousness model also isn't profitable. Sorry, you can't patent it. You can't turn it into some kind of privately owned technology. So yes, it is happening, and I think more and more scientists are going to become more and more courageous about it, and just say Matter is a fiction. Matter is a fiction. I think even Dalai Lama said that matter is not a scientific fact. It is a belief of faith. There is no matter. It's all consciousness. The belief that I'm a separate self and there's a world out there, the moment I take that belief, I have to ask, what is this world made of? Right? Matter. That's where it came from. Classical analysis from the Greeks 3,000 years ago made that split, me, then the world. So what's the world made of? It's made of matter. They were the ones who invented the phrase, matter, and atom. Atom being the smallest unit. So they figured everything could be known by taking it apart and getting down to the most fundamental particles. Well, wrong. They were wrong. Useful, and certainly the scientific model got us out of the horrible superstition and oppression of the Middle and Dark Ages. In Europe, it was never a problem in the East. They didn't have the same kind of oppressive world that we did in the West, growing out of the Abrahamic religions. So it's completely different everything, really. But you see, it is just a model. It's just dominated, but it is just a model. Right? There's no proof for the existence of matter. The only way you can prove it is to step outside of perception, to witness it, right? To witness something existing separate from myself, and it can't be done. Nobody can do it. So there's no evidence for matter. It's a belief, it's a perception, it's a concept. That my experience is external to myself, that it's made of matter. Right? It's not. It's not made of matter, and it's not external. All you know is consciousness. It's all you've ever known. This is something you explore on your, all the way. You just take it all the way until there's no doubt left. Right? Nothing out there. It's all happening on the back of your eyeballs, including your eyeballs. They're not out there either. Robert Goldberg. Hi, GP. From Nevada, and hi to all. With the elections over, like many in the U.S., are contemplating things anew. How can I remain neutral with so much bad worldwide? Establish yourself in the truth of who you are. Because, little side note, little side effect, when you know who you are, you know who everybody else is. Then we can clearly distinguish between what is true and what is actual consciousness and what is conditioning. And this insight is the most powerful influence there is. Right? We think, oh my God, I'm, all these bad things happening. What's going to happen? How do I do something about it? You're doing it. Oh, wake up to who you are. It is the only way, right? At this point, we've run out of moves, right? The system can't be repaired, right? It's beyond repair. It's broken beyond any help. Right? It's got to be raised. What are we going to make in its place? Right? What you're talking about is the idea of myself as a material being, and that's what all these systems are based on, right? Has run its course. It is exhausted. We have run out of moves. There's nothing more we can do with this. So you see that in yourself. To awaken, fully awaken, is the only thing to do. Out of that, it'll rise, because it's so subtle, and it's so nuanced, and it's so pervasive, and it is so powerful. It will create solutions and adjustments and systems that match it, that correspond to its essential energy. Just like the current systems match and correspond to the essential energy of the ego. Right? Replace the ego, you're going to create a different world. That is, but you're not setting out to create a different world. Right? If you do that, you're still working under the old model that there's this world out there that I've got to somehow fix. You completely eradicate from yourself the belief in anything other than the one. That all is God, and God is all, and there's nothing else. That will manifest itself. But first establish yourself there. First establish yourself there. Right? You have to do that. Right? There is no other way. I have to emphasize that over and over. There ain't no other way. I'm sorry, all the other doors and windows have been closed, bolted, and locked. And boarded up, right? Ain't no other way out. The only way out is in. And that, but not weak. It is the most powerful thing there is. You'll discover that love, genuine love, the love of wisdom, is not fine china. It's up on the shelf and you bring it down for special occasions and keep it out of the hands of children. It is the way. It is very powerful, earthy, gritty. It's more than willing to get right down in the mud and wrestle. And that's where your authority comes for genuine change, for genuine transformation. And it provides the vision of what transformation should do. Where should it go? It will inform everything else. Just like it has in any individual life, including your own, right? It will inform the world. Right? Because what's the world but just the collection of us? KT, hi GP. If being exists outside of birth and death, how does this integrate with our human existence? And how do we relate to death? Oh, great question. We have to stop thinking of our human existence as separate. Okay? Right? There's not being and then human existence, right? Without being, there can't be human existence. Human is being made manifest. When we think of it as something separate, right? Now we invent all sorts of things. We attribute all sorts of things to it that it doesn't actually possess. Right? Right? Because you've separated it from its actual origin, and now we're making up a different origin. It's all fiction. It's all a story. This is what conditioning is. This is what's going on in the world. So you don't have to integrate it. They're already one. The true non-dual understanding is not there's being and then there's this. There isn't two, right? When you're looking at anyone, you're seeing the infinite. The infinite is made manifest in form, but every single form expresses the totality. Right? Like every piece of music expresses the totality of music. Shows an aspect of music. But music is not limited to any form. So you have the principle of music, which can take any form and never runs out and is totally exhaustible. And yet every single piece is a complete, wondrous thing in and of itself. This is the beauty of it. Right? This is the integration. That's actually what's symbolized by the cross. Right? It is this intersection between past, future, heaven, and earth. And at the center of the cross is the archetype of the king, right? The one, that which everything else revolves around. It represents that absolute oneness, the middle way. It's neither this nor that nor both nor neither, right? And so the form and the emptiness, the shunyata, the pure potential, become one. They are not two. This is what your mind cannot grasp. So it's got being and then things that are, as if they're separate. Right? The wave is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean. Right? Human existence is the pure being pondering itself, manifesting itself to itself. That's what human existence is. When you're looking at anybody, the human being, you're looking at the Buddha. You are looking at the one. Wherever the eye lights, it sees the face of God, is the way the Sufis put it. So there's no longer a human and then a God somewhere, that is God. It's immanent. You're looking at the wave, you're looking at the ocean. You're looking at a movie, you're looking at the screen. Right? Like this screen right here that you're looking at. Right? Right? You're looking at me, you're thinking about me, you're listening to my words, right? Hopefully. At the same time, without realizing, you're looking at the screen. Right? But this image on the screen, it is the screen. It isn't a screen and then there's an image on it. So even the computer screen is even a better metaphor than the movie screen, which has got something being projected on it. It just provides the background for the projection to take place. The computer screen is even better because the screen is nothing but the potential for images. And when you're looking at the image, it is the screen. Right? You can't separate the two. You can stop the images, right? But the screen remains exactly the same. The moving that's happening on the screen is an illusion. The screen is simply lighting things up, 60 times a second to be exact. The lights going on and off in all sorts of different combinations. So they're not. This is the beauty of it. They're not two. Right? If you're asleep at night having a dream and you're walking all over the world, is the dream different, separate from you? It's the direct outcome of you. Matter of fact, if there was no you, there could be no dream. And the dream is a direct result. So this is what I want you to see. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at God. And it's God looking, going, I'm getting a little old. So death doesn't exist. Or you could say death is constant, right? Your body is not a thing that dies, right? Right now, in the time I've say this sentence, several million cells have died and several million more have been reborn. It's a constant flow. It's a constant replenishment, right? So what happened to the 15-year-old version of you? They're gone for good, right? Don't have the same interests, don't have the same likes, you don't have the same body, you don't have the same voice, right? It's gone. You could say that, my 15-year-old self is dead. Right? So at some point, this particular form will have fulfilled everything it's supposed to fulfill, and it will dissolve. Right? Where are you? Right here, where you've always been. From your perspective, right? From the world out, if you see somebody and all of a sudden this body just collapses. It's as if the radio is broken and it can no longer transmit. Now, the broadcast is still happening, isn't it? It's gone nowhere. Right? Just the receiver's gone. Right? From your perspective, it'll be like waking up from a dream. This will just kind of fall away. And oh wow. And little by little, it just kind of fade into the memory, and something else will appear, right? And when you're in that body, that will be me, and I'll be afraid of death, right? Like you have 1,000 times before. But if you've had 1,000 lives, well, who are you? Right? Every single one of those, this is really me, right? A different race, different gender, who are you? So human existence is this constant unfoldment, this constant arising of form, and it's spontaneous, right? The image on you where you're seeing me right now is refreshing itself 60 times a second. It's not static. Even your wallpaper, right, which isn't moving, it looks like a static picture, isn't static. It's being constantly refreshed. That's how those little dots, they light up and go out 60 times a second. So there's nothing static at all. That's consciousness. It is not. creation is not a moment of time in time. It wasn't that there was creation or a big bang and then it has been doing stuff ever since. No, it is something that is always happening. Creating is happening now. Right? And it's just that this moment is similar to the moment before. But every single moment is infinitesimally different. Right? It's never, ever, ever the same. Right? But it just changes gradually. So there's some pattern integrity to it. Right? But it's being generated constantly. That's the real experience. That's actually what's happening. The Buddhists even say it's like 80,000 times a second, but it's faster than that. You can't put it into those terms because it isn't even a flickering. It is continuous. Again, inconceivable. You're talking about emptiness manifesting as form, right? And not anything static, ever. No matter how thinly you slice time, you will never find a thing. Only a flow. That's the only words I can use for it. Does this help, KT? I hope so. If it didn't, you're going to tell me. Penny, sorry, I didn't know it was there, but I had great insights with the inquiry that there is no decision to be made. The decision does not depend on oneself, so the I doesn't get in the way. No. There are no decisions. You're not making any decisions. Look for yourself. This may sound strange because we're not used to it, but look very carefully at the process of decision making, and you will find that at some moment, out of complete nothingness, emerges the deciding thought. Before that thought arose, can you find yourself there creating that thought? If you did, it would already exist. So there's no chooser, there's only choosing. Right? Buddha put it this way, he says, there's a road, there's a walking on the road, but there's no traveler. It is simply a deciding thought appears, gathers other thoughts around it, and before you know it, off in a direction you go. And then, several thoughts later, another thought says, I made a decision, which is just another thought. That's, again, the ego taking credit for something it never did. Which is a definition of patriotism, I heard, which is people hating other people they've never met, taking credit for something they never did. That's the ego. Again, examine this stuff for yourself. Look really close. Don't take my word for it. This isn't philosophy. It's not religion. It's not something you're supposed to believe. Don't believe anything. Know or don't know. Period. Right? Don't take anything for granted. Look at it. See if you can find yourself making the decision, or if a deciding thought simply appeared out of consciousness. Where else? This infinite field that is the true self. Michael G, thank you, GP. You're welcome, Michael. I'm glad I covered it. Himonk, I the truth. Yes. Himonk says, I am the truth, but like two lives. One is the real self, and the other is the egocentric you, which is controlled by the real. Should the truth distinguish between the real self and the other egocentric self that is controlled by the real self, the truth? Take it even further to see that there is no ego. There is no egocentric mind. There is no self there. Consciousness alone is the self. What we call the ego is projecting a sense of self on what in fact is just a functioning. And I've used this example before. We're not far from the fact, from the time when there are going to be robots that are so lifelike and capable of learning in such a way that we will not be able to distinguish them from a real human being. So we will project upon them a self, even though there's no self there. There's no sentience there. There's nothing, there's no consciousness that is recognizing itself. Right? It will be acting absolutely like there is, but there isn't. Yet we will project upon it a sense of its own life. I mean, people who are really into soap operas or telenovelas, for those of you who speak Spanish, right, get so wrapped up in it. I mean, they get angry when the characters, do something. It's as if they've projected a sense that these are real people. I've even heard stories of the celebrities who've been playing these roles. People throwing things at them on the street, calling them by their name, right? If they see them, right, in real life, they don't see them as actors. They see them as their character. Well, that's completely in the mind, right? So the ego is simply when you who are self, who truly are consciousness, project that selfness onto what in fact is an insentient, robotic process. That is the ego. So it isn't anything real. And you don't have two lives. There's not the real self and then this other self. You, the real self, has simply projected selfness upon something that doesn't have it. Pull it back. Bring it back. It isn't a self. It's a functioning. And functions are not the self. This is why I can say conclusively the body is not consciousness, because it's just functioning. There's no self there. Right? There's no self at all, except the one looking at it. Right? That projection. Right? So to distinguish between the real self and the egocentric self is to see that the egocentric self doesn't exist. It is only a functioning of the nervous system. That's all that's happening. Right? So the ego, the mind, do not exist. They're only a thought projected upon something that has no consciousness, no sentience, nothing. Is that clear for you, hey monk? I love this. Crispin in Switzerland. Hey, Crispin. What is sickness? Sickness is simply fear made manifest in the body. And what is fear? Sense that I am this body. I'm a body in the world. And the world's got all sorts of things going in it, things that can make me sick. It is always some form of fear made manifest. A belief that I'm a separate self, and the belief in separate self gives rise immediately to the fear of death and the fear of lack. The fear of death manifests itself as disease. Right? Now, that is the general case. Right? Obviously, specific fears manifest specific things in the body. Unprocessed trauma, right, which is an intense fear that gets physically contained, right? But it all comes down to fear. At the essence of all of it is fear. When there's no fear, there's no sickness. Now, that said, even the greatest sages died, right? Their bodies passed away. And sometimes, an illness or come or go, some kind of karmic event from a long time ago. Once you see through it, the object here is to not get rid of sickness, right? The object here is to not always heal whatever comes up and make the body better. The object is to know yourself as consciousness, not as the body. Then the body may get sick occasionally. All that is then, if it isn't coming from the fear, is simply the body interacting naturally with the environment. And what we even call sickness, right? We call cold, I'm sick. Well, no, you're not. Right? What that is a healthy body responding in the most healthy way to the environment, right? Because some little critters got in there eating stuff, and the body is doing what it needs to do to dispatch with that little critter. If you weren't well, right, it would win, and the body would cease functioning, right? So that level of sickness is simply the body interacting with the environment, right? And sometimes, in order to interact, it has to give more priority to this interaction than it does to you. So it sucks your energy, puts it towards that. It reduces everything, takes away all stuff, because no time for that. Takes away the higher functioning. Right? Just like when you're threatened by something, it's not the time to be doing creative thinking. All the energy is going into protecting yourself. That's just the interaction. That's the natural interaction. So it's as natural that way as is the fight and flight mechanism. So that is the natural flow of it. Right? The unnatural is when it is being generated from unprocessed trauma, emotional pains and stuff that we haven't, that we're not facing, and our fears. Right? Those can be eradicated. Right? The other isn't even a problem. It's not even really sickness. It's just nature. Is that clear, my friend? Jay, hello to you too, sir. We've just jumped ahead again. There we are. Tatiana, welcome. Torrential rain in Toronto. Must be getting cold there too. It's cold here. Mark Wagner, together, separate. Yes, absolutely. It is neither this nor that nor both nor neither. You can't call it together, you can't call it separate. What are you left with? What it is. What is it? It's this. It's just this. The pure isness of it. And you can see it's not conceivable. Thank God you don't have to, because you're it. Jay, I've heard that children and animals are already aligned in presence, but when do children get interested in external objects? It seems like they forget who they are, but as soon as this realization happens, it's like this extraordinary discovery, but it's always been the case. Yes, children and animals are in that aligned state of undifferentiated consciousness, but they are not established there. They are not consciously there. In order to become consciously aware of that, you have to first fall from the grace of the undifferentiated consciousness of children, identify with the body, go through this process, eventually hear the Dharma, and awaken to undifferentiated consciousness consciously. Now, you'll recognize it. Yes, of course, this is home. I've always known this. This has always been the case. And you see that the entire fall, the sense of a separate self, and even the awakening was a dream. but it has to happen. And the beauty is that, yes, animals are in that state, but they don't have the option, right, that humans do, to fully realize it. But don't worry about them. Your realization is their realization. And don't try to understand that. It's true. Your awakening is the whole world's awakening. Buddha said this, not very well quoted and even less understood. He said, when I attain the great unparalleled enlightenment, simultaneously all beings attained the great unparalleled enlightenment. Because when you wake up, you see there never was an ego, which means you won't see it in anybody else either. You won't see an ego anymore. You will see God. God immanent in everything. Mary, so are our feelings ever telling us something that may be true at all? Well, sure, yeah. The feelings are just reactive. They're not liars, right? In order for somebody to lie, they have to know what it is. Right? So nothing's lying to you. People go, the mind's a liar. No, it's not. It's ignorant. It doesn't know what the truth is. Right? So in the way I bring people to it through the yoga of allowing and that stuff, your feelings are closer to the truth than your thoughts are, but they are still reactive. Emotions and feelings are completely reactive. They're not proactive in the slightest. If nothing's triggering you in the environment, there's calm. When something happens in the environment, there's a reaction. So they are not the arbiters of truth. They're simply reacting to the truth. But we often use the word feeling for intuition, right? Because intuition just isn't the head, it's also the heart. As a matter of fact, it's all the heart, right? And so we can say that feels true, right? Now that's not the same. It's a very subtle difference between that and a reactive feeling running through the body. It's more of a heart knowing. It's the best that I can do. I can describe it. So if you are willing to be with your feelings, you'll get an accurate picture, because feelings aren't it. They accurately reflect, right? And what they're reflecting may be very unpleasant. It may be a false belief. It may be an old unprocessed trauma or something like that. But it will be an accurate reflection. Whereas the mind, you can't trust for that because it distorts everything. So I will have people just be present with their feelings, because you will get a true picture, right? You'll actually feel what's going on, and without the mind, you get access to the truth of your experience. But there's another much more subtle level of feeling, which is that intuitive knowing of the heart, which is just, I know this is true, but this is not the same kind of knowing. I just feel it. And we'll oftentimes use those terms, right, interchangeably, synonymously. I know it. I know it. I can feel it in my bones, right? That's different than the reactive one of emotions. Can you see the distinction there? Okay. And so you have access to both, because you are the truth. And because you are the truth, it's what gives you the capacity to distinguish the truth from the false. Right? The false can't distinguish the difference. It can't tell the difference. Right? The ego cannot smell its own breath. So, does that do it for you, Mary? David, many thanks, GP. Always such comprehensive, insightful answers. Oh, will you keep challenging me, buddy? Time to play Stump the Guru. Jay, are we only experiencing a fragment of pure awareness through this form? Well, yeah. What else, right? The form isn't infinite. The world you're experiencing isn't infinite. But in order to experience the infinite, it must be confined to this form. That's how it happens. How else could it happen? You can't experience the infinite. There's nothing to experience. In order to have an experience, there must be form, right? Form and contrast, which means it must take place. It has to give rise to the contrast, right? Which is appearing in the infinite. Right? So what you're experiencing is a fragment of the infinite. Thank God. Right? There's no end to what can be experienced, which is good because we wouldn't want awareness to get bored. Right? But this is the only way it can happen. Right? Form has to create a universe with forms and a focus of attention, a focus of consciousness. Right? That focal point of consciousness is the I am that gives rise to the universe. That's God saying, be light, and there's light. I guess there's still a little bit of separation. A wee bit. It's okay. There is no separation in you. Don't think of yourself, right? It's very subtle. Don't think of yourself as the I trying to not be separate anymore, or to rid yourself of separation. That I and the sense of separation and the awakening and all of it, isn't all of it being perceived by something else? That which is perceiving it has never been in what is perceived. You following that, buddy? Bo, hey Bo, namaste from Kelowna, BC. Good to have you here. Truth Loops, wonderful. Thank you, Truth Loops. Jay, if Ramana Maharshi took form again, would there be the recognition of the truth right out the gate, or would there be identification with forms again? Well, a sense of identification form would arise. It's inevitable, because the sense of identification is inherent in form. Right? But the actual sense of identifying, that identity would be witnessed. Right? And so no identification would take place. The energy of identification inherent in the body would arise, but nobody would take ownership of that and say, I have identified. You following it? It's very subtle. Okay? There'd be nobody there to say, I've identified with form. Right? The thought, I identified with form, would arise, but nobody would take ownership of it. There'd be nobody there to say, oh no, I've identified, now I've got to awaken. You follow that? If you don't, it's okay. Ahmad, I am everything and I am nothing. Yes. And I'm neither of those. And I'm both of those. Yes. Yes. You don't need to describe anything. Who am I? I am. Full stop. Truth Loops. Where'd you go? Oh, message to Jay. Is it free of any sense? Yeah, perfect. Our true self is the same self as was in Ramana. It's free of any sense of identity. However, identity can still play in that body from time to time. Sure, people call them answered. That's the play of identity. Right? It knows it is not that identity. Yeah. You know you are not that. The thought, I am this or that, right? Still arises, but you don't buy it. Simple. Penny, beautiful that we are in autopilot. Thank you so much, GP. Oh, about decisions, yes. Would vasanas resurge again? Right. No. How could they? You see, if the vasanas are gone, so are rebirths. Right? It's only because of vasanas you can have a rebirth. Because it is the vasanas that give rise to form, give rise to the body. That is, not rise to form, but give rise to being somebody, which is what you would call rebirth. You know what? It's not important for you to answer these questions. You're being distracted. Right? Stick to the sense I am. That's all you need. Right? We're not trying to feed your mind here, right? If your mind wants to know, can you feel that energy of wanting to figure things, to think your way into nirvana? No, you can't think your way anywhere. You're into nirvana by leaving thinking. So yeah, the same with your other question. I'm just going to invite you to step back from these questions from that. Right? Because what the real answer you're looking for is a direct experience of yourself where there are no questions anymore. Right? It's not that I don't want to answer it, but I want to take you somewhere else first. Right? Get you out of your mind and back into your heart, just back into the simple sense of being, which is what Ramana was always pointing back to. Right? So, just do that, my friend. Crispin, thank you for your answer concerning sickness as fear. What about a newborn baby with severe disabilities? The fear of the parents, the general fear of consciousness in general, our belief in sickness, it's not a simple answer, right? In that moment, karmic energy, vasanas, all sorts of things can be a factor there, right? Again, these are the kinds of things that we can't think our way through. It's too complex. Our minds can't grasp it. We have to approach this with the heart. Nisargadatta said beautifully, he said, the mind creates the abyss, the heart crosses it. Remember, the mind is an insatiable seeker of knowledge. Right? It thrives on knowledge. Right? The last thing it wants is the end of knowledge, which is Vedanta. Okay? It does not want the end of knowledge, because the end of knowledge is the end of the mind. Right? At the end of knowledge, the mind literally dissolves into consciousness. And then you see consciousness and mind are one. But before that, the mind is just trying to know things. Excuse me. It is hungry for knowledge. It's hungry for knowledge. It is constantly trying, because there's this underlying belief that if I know something, then I will be safe, I will be good, I'll be okay. But it never happens. That sense of wholeness, that sense of well-being, that sense of safety never arises. So the mind just assumes I need more knowledge. And therefore it becomes this endless quest for knowledge. The simpler the mind is, the more quickly it moves to awakening. Our overactive minds, our overtrained minds, our overstimulated minds are a hindrance. They get in the way. So step back. Make sure that there's adequate time. Notice how your mind always wants to think about awakening rather than awaken. Put the attention on the sense of being. Remember, Nisargadatta said all he did was put all of his attention on the sense I am. That was his entire practice. His guru told him to do it, and he did it. He said, I trusted him, and I did it. No intellectual, he wasn't an intellectual, right? Far from it. His little vendor making cigarettes that he sold, called beaties. Nothing intellectual about him at all. Not well written or anything. He just put his attention completely on the I am, to the exclusion of everything else. And what happened? One of the greatest sages of all time. And when you listen to him talk, you'd think he was completely well read. All of those obstacles and limitations fell away. Right? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. You will have access to everything. Right? But go to the source of everything. Mary says, our feelings are reacting to what is true. Thank you, GP. Very good. Tatjana says, isn't intuition accessing knowing through being one with all that is? Yes, because you are one with all that is. Intuition is simply the knowing feeling, right, of what's true, the recognition of what is true without arriving at it, right? It's not logical or reasoned. There's no process. There's no formula. You simply recognize this is who I am. This is what it is. I mean, awakening is intuitive. You don't arrive at it. It's an intuitive hit. So yes, it is arising. Intuition is the truth taking form. But it's the truth recognizing itself, right? You say, oh, that's an intuition. Why? You say, aha, it's true, and you know it's true. Well, what's that? Only the truth can recognize the truth. So intuition is simply the truth recognizing itself. Right? Without that power to recognize the truth, there couldn't be intuition. Right? It would go, oh, nobody get it. Right? But the truth in you recognizes the truth when it takes form. You recognize your own reflection in a mirror. It's that simple. Wonderful. Mary Sykes, yes, those feelings that I just know what I know. Yeah, that's it. Truth loops. Possibly we are misinterpreting emotions. When we have a negative emotion to a thought, it could be telling us that the thought is not in alignment with truth. And positive emotions tell us the opposite. Yes. Yeah. They're reactive, right? They're totally reactive, right? And so they are a useful measurement, right? They're not the truth, right? The truth is beyond all feeling, all thought, everything, right? It's being itself. It's what you are. But our feelings, when they are pure, not all messed up, not all burdened, and the like, are a very accurate reflection, right? And so it'll just kind of feel. But yes, you're right. When we want to be warm, we walk towards the fire, right? And if we walk away from the fire, we start to get cold and go, oh, it's getting cold, and we turn back towards the fire. That you could put it like that, like what we would call a negative emotion. A feeling something's wrong, right, is an indication that something's wrong. You're walking away from yourself. And the sense of freedom, the sense, the harmonious feelings, right, a diminishment of conflict, inner conflict, or craving, right, indicates I'm headed back towards myself, right? Far away from you, it's like getting away from the sun. It becomes this little speck in the sky. It gets really cold, right? Right. So yes, that's a very good way to put it. Andre, hello, GP and everybody. Hello to you. Ahmad says yes, I agree. Truth Loop says I love you. I love you too. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Penelope, hello, Penelope. Hi everyone, Angela from Glasgow here. Came on a bit late. I would love to experience what you teach. Oh, good. Well, welcome. Yeah, you came on 2:47. Oh, very quick. Not that long ago. Well, yeah, I'll just hang out and listen. It's hard for me to put into words what I teach. Nazarene, hey GP, strange question. Is I am also an illusion? Everything appears as what is, which is beyond experience and knowing. Thanks. Now, remember, an illusion is a misperception of what is real. There has to be something there to have the illusion and to project. It's not a hallucination, right? Right? The mirage in the desert is an illusion. The desert's there, the heat, the sun, the thirst, the sweating, right? The air making ripples, the heat rising and distorting the air. That's all there. But the mirage isn't, right? The oasis isn't. The people sitting around the water sipping Mai Tais, they're not real. That's a projection onto what is, right? So the sense I am is not an illusion. It is not the ultimate, but it is not an illusion. Right? You have a sense I am, right? That sense I am gets projected on it an existence separate from the source of it. So in order for there to be an I am, there must be something. What is must precede any sense whatsoever. So it's not an illusion, it is the first manifestation. And of course, it's the only manifestation because the I am includes all form. The I am and the universe are one. So, let's see. Everything appearing as what is, which is beyond experience and knowing. Thanks. Yes. So the experience, I am, is the first experience. It is the first manifestation. It is not an entity in and of itself. This is the knowingness of pure awareness. So it knows itself. And out of that knowing arises the sense I am. But prior to the sense of I am, you were. Right? It's very, very subtle. It's just, it's not something in time. They coexist. Right? But it's kind of the order of precedence. Right? The I am, the sense I am, is obviously dependent upon being. Right? The Satchidananda. And you simply notice it, the sense of I am, and that you're aware of the sense of I am. So you are beyond even the sense I am. That is, you're beyond the entire universe. Does that answer it for you, my dear friend? Jay, thanks for being patient, G. My mind wanted a goal to look towards and achieve peace to make all this worth the effort, but now I see what it's actually doing. I'll let it do its thing. That's it. You see it for what it's really doing. It's trying to avoid peace at all costs, actually, because peace is its demise. Mary says, what a fantastic satsang. Wow, thank you. The last one from New Mexico. My next satsang will be from Seattle on my high-speed network. But next week there won't be because I will be in transit. I'll be in between things, and I don't actually have the apartment till the next day. Thank you again for another beautiful satsang. The world needs more masters like you. Oh, thank you. Well, then hit the like button, will ya? Ava, have a good and smooth journey. Reach the destination, come back to us. All I love. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your insightful answer about the mind endlessly looking for knowledge. So profound for me. Yes, I used to really be proud of my knowledge. Ooh, pride of knowledge. Oh my God. It is a very difficult nut to get through. And of course, we experience that throughout all sorts of things, the pride of what I know. Tatiana, thank you, GP. Every sensing is delicious food for my soul. Satsang. I meant satsang. I got it. My Mac changed it. Yep, autocorrect. We echo that, Ava. Thank you again for satsang. So we'll have to do something else next Sunday. Yeah, sorry, guys. Thank you so much, Sifu. You're very welcome, Penny. Aman, thank you very much. Or thanks to consciousness to express the truth through you. Yeah, thanks. The radio, the radio does its job. Truth loops. 61 wonderful beings watching. Hit the like button, all of us. I can't pronounce that name. A few years ago during meditation, the situation of no self. My attention was stuck in the presence, and I could not find myself as something. It was just seeing but no seer. That's it. Perfect. Yes. Yes. That's it. Now you said a few years ago during meditation. That's actually always happening. Okay? Right? It's just the cloud parted. You saw the sky, the blue sky. Oh my goodness! And the clouds came back. That's all. Right? It's still there. It's still true. Right? And of course, that one glimpse has now been directing your entire life. Everything in your life is organizing itself to turn that glimpse into your everyday experience. Wonderful. It wasn't like unity, but it wasn't like unity. It vanished slowly after a few hours later. Yeah. It is different because even the sense of unity is gone. It is just pure, absolute being. You're very blessed, my friend. It's very rare to get that kind of an experience. So cherish it. It didn't vanish because it wasn't the experience. If you lived in a place where there were always gray skies, right? You would think the sky was gray. And every now and then, miraculously, a patch of blue would appear in the gray sky. And you would think, a patch of blue appeared. It disappeared. I had the experience of this patch of blue. But people would get, curious about it, and scientists, right? And eventually we invented, hot air balloons, and some scientists would get in this hot air balloon when one of these blue spots appeared, and they go up to try to measure it and find out what it was made of, and find themselves going, there was nothing there at all, right through, and all of a sudden, it's the sky. That is the sky. This other, right, has been obscuring it. Take this to heart. Right? It's simply that the old habit patterns of the mind came back and attempting to reestablish a sense of self, and then turn what wasn't an experience into an experience being had by somebody. Nobody had that experience. That was you. That was the real you. And it's here right now. And on that note, I will say good day to all of you. I will see you all in 2 weeks. I'm also looking forward to the new internet service so I can start doing some meditations again in the morning like I had been. Please do like and share. And I will be letting everyone know I think next week about the details of the upcoming retreat I'm going to be doing December 4th, 5th, and 6th, of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Um, so that'll be, that's coming up, and I'll let everybody know when it's going to come up, and I'll have the internet service, so it'll all work quite well. So until next time, everybody, thank you so much for being with me. Love you all. Namaste.